Today, YouTube is killing the year-end rewind videos. The question is, why?
Then Siri. It's shocking how much Apple has abandoned its early lead in voice recognition.
It's called dark design, and it's shockingly creepy. We'll tell you why.
I'm Steven Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward.
I'm Alexa Scordato. Let's launch.
And launch we shall. Good morning, Alexa. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You know, strangely fabulous. The Media Lab Summit is over, which was a lot of work, but really exciting. And, it's going to be fall.
Do you feel like you learned things from last year that you were able to immediately apply this year, since it was the second time it was virtual?
Yes. It was different. It was different this year, in part just because people are struggling with being in person, being remote. I'm starting to go to things again. Going to go to a conference on Tuesday. People are starting to stick their head out, but it's still a weird time,
Do you think, I know it's probably a different podcast, but do you feel like as events move back IRL, like in person, that virtual events will kind of just dissipate?
No, I think there'll always be some hybrid. But I think people are realizing how much they actually like being in person.
Yeah.
More, I think, than people realized. But let's start with this YouTube thing, because I happen to think this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Didn't get a lot of coverage. So YouTube Rewind was for YouTube this statement that they cover the whole world, but here's in a couple of minutes what mattered. And it was political and it was topical, and I thought it was a statement about their kind of trend-setting prominence.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I heard that they didn't do one last year, and they said it was because of COVID, and okay, I get that. But then I was like, why would they not go back to doing it? And so I dug in a little bit. And it turns out, it comes down a little bit to where they are in the relative ecosystem.
The ecosystem related to creators or just video in general?
Social media. I mean, so Susan Wojcicki has been the CEO for a very long time. And we'll talk about her in a minute, because I think there's an interesting question to ask about her aside from this. But, every morning when you're the CEO of one of those handful of social media companies, you wake up every morning and you knock on the bedside table that's wooden, hopefully, and you're just glad you're not Facebook. And, you're not Facebook because of the elections. You're not Facebook because of social, because of, all kind of, Cambridge Analytica. But some of it is you're not Facebook because the media spotlight has chosen to land on somebody else, and it happens to be Mark Zuckerberg, who makes an excellent villain. And we talked about this last week on the pod, but even since then, I mean, you watch Facebook's comms people go out and try and defend, the spirited away internal documents, and it's like,
Yeah.
when the PR guy from Facebook's response to any reporter that will talk to him, that wants to talk to him, is, we want more legislation. That's code for, can't you blame the other guys too?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's all get roped into this thing. And by the way, we have a lot of lobbyists, so we think we could win against Twitter and Reddit and YouTube and Google and other folks if we could just have a level playing field called legislation that we would help write. So Rewind was set to be an unmitigated shit show in 2021.
So you think that the root cause for them canceling it is it's just they make themselves too easy of a target. Because it was like 2018 or I think the last video where it was the most disliked video on YouTube.
So let's think about it. Either you put the election in the rewind video or you don't. Either decision is a bad decision. Either you talk about Donald Trump or you don't. Either you talk about January 6th or you don't. Either you talk about Joe Biden or you don't. There's if you're sitting in the conference room at YouTube with a yellow pad going, we get shit for this, we don't get shit for this. The answer is you get shit for, either you talk about ivermectin or I mean, I could keep going, but like all the things that are top of mind from 2021, they're in an unenviable lose-lose position over.
So I'm curious, I mean, you've produced so many things. Is there a way to edit or present the content in a way that is neutral? Or is there always a point of view that's expressed by the creator?
There's no neutral way that you talk about January 6th.
Yeah.
Either you say there was an attack upon our democracy that very much looks to all reasonable people like it was probably a coup attempt, or you say Antifa did it and the media's fucking liars. There's not a lot of gray area there. These are fairly, I mean, the biggest thing that I took away from them deciding not to do rewind is essentially that in this bifurcated world we live in, you're going to alienate somebody if you say something.
Okay. Yeah. So they're still going to do though, like trend lists, which in some ways is like, it really puts a spotlight on the community versus them as a platform.
Yes. So there's two other things about the state of YouTube, I think. One is Susan, just if we spend a minute and do a little bit of disassembling of her psyche. So why do you become the CEO of a company? Well, it's fairly, either you want to change the world, there is the change the world gene that comes with CEOs, or you want to become wealthy. She has, to her credit, during her, time as CEO, done both.
Wasn't she already successful though? Because she was already like a tenured Google employee, like early Google employee.
She was wealthy, although I don't know the number. She's also got a large family. I'm going to
of like overachievers. Her sister is also the CEO of
23andMe.
23andMe.
Right. But she's got 5 kids or 4 kids. I mean, she's got like so once you've changed the world and you're wealthy and you've got, you certainly fuck you money and maybe fuck you money 10 times over. Then the question is, and that every day that you're going to go to work, there's going to be a pile of flames on your desk. Somewhere in the world, someone used YouTube to do something, to put something on that's causing strife. That takes a very particular kind of person to have to wake up and put your shoes on and, or go virtually or physically to work, essentially to be putting out fires every day. And the only real innovation that they've done at YouTube in the last couple of years that's memorable is this push toward selling subscriptions to a package of subscriptions to media.
I mean, I have friends who are subscribed to YouTube and they love it.
Why though? I've tried every service in the world and I haven't tried that one, so maybe I should.
I think because it's I mean, ironically, it's the closest thing to having cable again. And you can record shows and fast forward, and I mean, it really is like having a cable subscription with DVR built in.
So I, after canceling cable for a long time, went back to Comcast. not to I'm sorry, not to Comcast, to Spectrum, and it's got a cloud DVR and a bunch of channels, and it's pretty cheap. I mean, we've got an early some. It's a kind of hard to find service. You have to poke around, but I think YouTube ended up being more.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But are you locked into a contract that's like a full year?
No.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because I feel like most consumers would probably have an easier time forking over money to YouTube than Comcast, Spectrum, Optimum, any of the other providers. Because, I mean, my impression as a consumer who cut their cord, yeah, they're just a pain in the ass.
But you still have broadband, right?
Yeah.
So you're still paying them,
right?
So you get
a huge company, Verizon.
Right. Well, and a lot of money. I mean, it's not cheap. Broadband.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to
like
remember.
89. I think I'm paying $89.99.
Right. So you're paying $90 a month, and then another 30 or 40 for basic cable, or 50 through YouTube. Anyway, but back to YouTube for a second. The reason why I find the shift toward what I don't even remember what they call the YouTube Premium product. They ask me about signing up for it every time I log in, which is a lot.
They're so aggressive.
Yeah. The only reason why I think it's interesting that they shifted to that is that's something of a commodity product, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's just called YouTube Premium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really what they're saying by shifting to that is we want to sell something where we're not the brand on the front door that's making the content. We just want to be distributors.
Right.
And since we have such a huge UGC community, we have plenty to distribute that we don't have to take responsibility for. So I put their decision to get out of the rewind business as a pretty significant end of an era at YouTube.
So you think they're going to play it safe from now on?
Well, or for now anyway. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
I mean, if Facebook is urging Congress to legislate, the last thing you want to be is on their list of things that need to be legislated.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So not a bad thing that YouTube's making this change, just interesting and timely.
Mm-hmm.
With that,
let's shifting gears. Siri.
Let's start by being optimistic. Say something good about Siri.
Oh man, it's so funny. I have such a neutral stance on Siri. I know the voice is pleasant. I don't know.
The voice.
It's a Siri is not called Alexa, so Siri doesn't bother me.
Siri is shockingly bad, and it's puzzling that it's so bad because it really, as we move toward voice, you want it like increasingly. I want to use it on my phone. I want to be able to speak instead of type things, text messages, and it's just, it would almost be funny, except that the mistakes it makes are so horribly embarrassing that it's like every voice to text experience with it reminds you of how close to making a humiliating mistake you are.
Yeah, I mean it's bizarre, right? Because it's Apple, right? It's the largest company in the world, and they were first to market. They had every competitive advantage, and the product has not really found its way to be core to the Apple user experience.
And they went through a bunch of so the Verge article. This is from the Verge, and the headline is "Hey Siri, what happened?"
Yeah.
And my phone is responding. I'm not sure I understand. Yeah, let's do that again, shall we? Hey Siri, what happened? Hey Siri, what happened?
One sec. I didn't get that.
Yeah. No. Uh, so the Verge article reminds us of its introduction, which was in 2011. So that's 10 years ago. They've gone through a lot of personnel changes, which is maybe, but if you've read the Bezos book about Alexa, when he said to a bunch of engineers, we're going to build this device that's going to be voice activated and it's going to buy things, and blah, blah, blah. Like literally the engineers were like, you're the boss, we'll do whatever you say, but that's just flipping impossible. And Alexa's not perfect either, but you can feel it improve over 6 months and get less sloppy.
It's also I mean, my experience with friends and family who have the devices, they're kind of everywhere in their homes. I mean, again, it's maybe more pronounced for me because it's my name, but I'm constantly hearing people say, Alexa, what's the weather? Alexa, set a timer. Like these are all actions and commands that are just part of people's daily lives.
By the
It's
way,
in the kitchen.
I know you're not litigious, but it does seem to me that there's a massive class action suit between you and everyone else that has your first name that could get a lawyer and say, hey, we would like to have you not be misusing our name with such prevalence. But
sometimes I wonder, I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent. Like, is there a way, I wish there was like a researcher, if there's a researcher listening to this, like how can I do a study that shows the impact of Alexa in terms of my public perception? Like sometimes I wonder like, oh, do people actually trust me more without really knowing me?
Oh, that would be their response. That's great.
Yeah.
Their response would be, we've actually added value.
Right. Because people naturally see me as a resource and a go-to and helpful.
By the way, does anyone name their child Siri?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever met a Siri, but I definitely meet more Alexas now.
This is a research study. We should get the research. All right, but back to Apple. So how did they miss the mark? And I mean, The Verge has a thesis, but I'm not sure that I buy it entirely.
So I mean, one factor that they point to is like leadership, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Like trouble at the top. Which is kind of weird because I think like I was always under the impression that there was a lot of top-down guidance at Apple where once they're sort of this like strategic initiative, they go. But
so
I don't
know.
But we've seen this too with Apple Maps, right? Like Siri and Apple Maps for me are like the two clearest cases of initiatives.
Bad software design.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. And yet AirPods, you would think would, if Steve Jobs could be a ghost in Tim Cook's office, you can imagine him pounding the desk and saying, why the fuck aren't you kicking their ass and making this product,
Right.
By the way, has Maps gotten any better? I don't even know the answer because I don't use it.
I also don't really use it. I mean, I think actually no, there was one view I saw recently, and I think it was the detail on a map that I thought it was actually a Google map and it was an Apple map.
Interesting.
So I don't know, but the Verge article also says that it's possible that Apple's stance on privacy has impeded their ability to make Siri better because it's not feeding the same amount of data into the Siri engine that Amazon is.
Oh, I think that's a weak excuse. I don't buy that. I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, so either you're listening to me when I speak or you're not. Like, I mean, I mean, Look, Apple's made a big long-term play, bet that privacy is going to become the thing people care about more than anything. And um, I'm willing to consider that. I mean, I have to say that I was looking for something on Amazon the other day and was shocked at the number of products that it was trying to put in front of me that were ads that were not quality based but were dollar based.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, what are things like if you, I don't know, if you could lead a talented team of developers at Apple, what are the things you would want to improve about Siri? Like, what do you want to use Siri for, ideally?
well, it's happened really fast, but I do a lot of speech to text, a lot of it. Sometimes I write my blog posts first draft and speech to text. And if I'm sitting out on the porch and I've got my phone in my hand and I open up notes and I want to just, kind of chat a little bit about some things I'm thinking about, I have to be really careful because if I don't take a really good look at that text when I try and write around it, some of it is shockingly bad.
Okay. So it's
Um,
not even, it's like very practical voice
yeah,
to text.
and,
Yeah.
by the way, Microsoft Word voice to text is shockingly good.
Hmm.
Shockingly good.
Yeah.
Um,
For me, we talked about this a few episodes ago, but just having deeper integrations with popular apps that I use. And the irony is they're severing those API endpoints so that in the future, I can't do things like say, Siri, play, you know, my
Spotify.
play Spotify, play my
Yep.
podcast playlist.
So, I had an experience the other day where I was on a city bike and I wanted to know where the nearest docking station was. And I don't remember now whether it was Google Maps or Apple Maps, but essentially the response I got back from the software was, "We don't have access to that information." And I was like, "Really?" So I had to go and log into the City Bike app, and it told me exactly where it was. And I was like, I just don't understand in this day and age who makes that those decisions to not be integrated are happening at the business level, not at the customer level.
Right. So I have a question. When you use your phone, are you using a lot of other Apple apps like Mail or Safari or
Yes,
Maps?
yes, no, no.
Yeah, I think this is also another problem. I use the Gmail app on my phone. I use Google Calendar. I use Google Search, like Chrome. Um, so I do wonder, like, if people were more willing to use the core Apple apps, that Siri would then have more of a benefit.
They're just, I mean, we'll talk about Chrome another day, but I mean, the fact that Chrome has ended up being the winner of the browser wars is both shocking and disappointing, right? I mean, Safari is just not that good, or it's not better.
Yeah. Or it's just, I don't know.
All right, but we have a little bit of time left. Let's move on to chapter 3 because it's actually related to this. Um,
Yep.
um, so this is this phenomenon called dark apps,
Mm-hmm.
and
Dark design.
dark design. For some,
We're on the app train still,
yeah.
subconsciously.
Hold on 1 second. I don't know why this isn't. It's interesting. My screen share stopped, froze on YouTube. So, all right. So the battle is over information, right? And on one hand, I don't know how often this happens to you, but the number of "prove you're not a robot," "click on bicycles" questions that I get in the last 4 months has gone up to, I'm going to say, 6 a day.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
And I can't figure out. I mean, these are apps or sites that I'm logged into. They know who I am. I've already given them my fingerprint and my blood type and my retinal scan, and they're like, "No, we still think you're a robot." Um, and And when they talk about dark design, they're talking about anything that essentially gets in between you and the information you're looking for by either offering you a subscription or essentially not trusting that you know what you're clicking on.
Yeah. According to the Fast Company article, dark design is the practice of creating user interfaces that are intentionally designed to trick or deceive the user.
Yeah.
So this is like super, I mean, what sucks is as a marketer, there are a lot of professionals who really endorse these practices. Like if my goal as a marketer is to say capture leads or 5x newsletter subscribers, it's very, very tempting to tell designers or the product team, I need you to make a pop-up that is huge and that it's really that the X to click out of it isn't visible unless you like hover the top right corner.
You say that as if I've almost heard you say that messaging in a meeting. Are you responsible for such design, or have you been in a past life?
If anything, it's like, I mean, it goes back to like Seth Godin, like permission-based marketing. Like you want to give people a choice. I think it's infuriating that marketers have basically been responsible, in my opinion, for like really kind of just like making the web a shitty place.
So yeah,
I'm just saying it's often marketers who are driving a lot of these or like at least approving these design experiences.
So what do you think we can do about this?
I mean, ad blockers definitely like take away some of the garbage and the noise. Some of it is like, I think there's a class of digital professionals, marketers, designers, developers, like in the way that the medical community has to take an oath, right? Kind of like do no harm, right? When you pass your medical exams and the boards, like I wish there was more integrity behind web workers.
So is this just the honest name for, I mean, so again, I'm now admitting I don't know this, but tell me the difference between dark design and essentially growth hacking.
They're coupled, like deeply, deeply coupled.
Okay, but growth hacker was always a badge of praise, no?
I guess it depends on who you ask. I mean, so much of it is in the details and the how. Growth marketers are like incredibly employable, in demand. I think growth hackers are sort of like synonymous with, marketers who are accountable to measurable results, right? But what's like nuanced in there is like the practices that are deployed in order to achieve growth. There's a huge bucket that really encompasses dark design.
All right, we're going to pause right there because that will be my learning for the day. And I'm now going to go and sit quietly and sob in the corner for a moment. Because, and it probably ties into, what Professor G has either it's a podcast or a blog out in the last half a day that talks about the percentage of advertising on the web that is essentially fraud.
Yep.
And it turns out it's a really, really, really big number. So at least in his math, which I think is probably true. And a lot of this has to do with, the whole, collapse of Aussie media. So we are out of time. Have an excellent week, everybody. Let's all agree we're not going to patronize growth hackers if they make our websites or our web experiences crappy.
And if you're a marketer, be an advocate for good design, good end user experiences.
Until then, see you next week. Bye, everybody.
See you next week.